It's 3:01. I think we can probably start with some a brief survey of folks in the room. So as some of you know, my name is Rebecca Barr. I'm the Early College Program Specialist. Before we get started, we would love to know a little bit about who is in the room and a little about why you're in the room. If we can. So either if you could just pop into the chat your name and your role or institution. I know we do have some familiar faces in the room. And if you are applying for a designation, that would be helpful for us to know to be able to answer questions and of course provide resources. This is a session geared towards new applicants, but it's always helpful for us to know who's who. And Kristen, do you want to introduce yourself as well, if we do have other new folks?
Sure, I'm Kristen Hunt, the director of Massachusetts Early College Programs, and I'm actually know that a lot of our partners who may have, particularly on the community college side, may already be designated, have a designated program, but may also be supporting another school district in designation. So welcome to everyone and glad to have those that have been designated their expertise in the room.
Perfect. And these responses in the chat are wonderful. Thank you for your specificity of your partners. It's etc. It's great. Awesome. All right. While you all continue doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will be presenting for the majority of the session, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A. However, if you do have questions as I present, please pop them in the chat, and then my colleagues will help make sure that we answer all of them at the end. That way you can ask your questions as they arise. But we'll definitely be saving time at the end for all of your questions. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so why early college? We know that it is a program that works. This is a screenshot of some of the results from a study done in 2014 in North Carolina. It was a sample of 4,000 students, and we can see clearly here by the data on the left that their early college students, about almost 2 times as much earned as, are 2 times as likely to earn a degree. And that's across, of course, all subgroups or subpopulations of students. So we know that early college works as a program, and in Massachusetts, we're seeing similar results as well with our initial data. So as you can see here, this is data demonstrating our graduation rates, our early college students' graduation rates in 2019 and 2020. Do keep in mind, of course, that the COVID pandemic did impact these results on the right-hand side in 2020. But we can see that in the blue, the early college students, and this number in the middle, the 273 under 2019 and 738 students under 2020. Those are the number of graduates. And we can see that 76% of students enrolled in college within 6 months of their high school graduation in 2019, and 63% of those students graduated and went enrolled in college within 6 months of graduation in 2020. So in both years, there is a 20% point difference. Though we do see, of course, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the right.
Becky, can I jump in 1 second?
Absolutely.
What else is cool about that is our programs are just starting to mature. So we really are now going to be able to see over the next couple of years, 12th graders who were able to start as 9th graders and progress all the way through the program and graduate out. So these are students that maybe have transitioned from previously non-designated programs into a designation. And move forward from there. But even from the 273 to 738, you can see the increase. And then next year, that will be quite an increase in the number of 12th graders that we have in the programs.
Absolutely. Perfect. And so what I want to do right now is define what early college looks like in Massachusetts. Specifically in Massachusetts, our designated programs must provide a structured program of study and supports that increase college success and career readiness for students. And these programs must also prioritize students who are historically underserved in higher education. And you'll notice here in this multi-component definition that there are pieces that are bolded. These phrases that are bolded are all, of course, related to our designation criteria and our 5 guiding principles, which I'll walk through in this presentation. So in the designated early college programs in Massachusetts, cohorts of students, groups of students together, they take at least 12 credits of strategically sequenced college courses during their regular or intentionally redesigned and integrated high school day at no cost to themselves or their families. So the early college program, the coursework, textbook, transportation, et cetera, the supports, all of that must be provided free of cost to students and their families. Additionally, students receive academic and non-academic guidance and support both before they begin their college coursework and then during their college coursework to make sure that they are able to successfully complete those rigorous college level courses and thrive in the college environment. We really want students to be confident, prepared, comfortable being on a college campus. And so definitely that's where some of those non-academic pieces come in as well. And I'll talk more about what those components look like. Cohorts or students should also learn that their guided academic pathways are related and connected to career opportunities. We don't want students to just go to college. We want them to be able to go to college, thrive in college, graduate, and enter the career of their choice. We want the cohorts of students to benefit from being a part of this early college community that eases the transition from high school to college. The focus here really being on this unique and distinct community of students that is either an entire school, that is a wall-to-wall early college school, or is a distinct program within a high school. And of course, we want our students to graduate from high school with a significant number of college credits. That 12 college credits is only a minimum. And we want them to have the habits and skills that they need to be successful both in college and career, increasing the likelihood that they will continue with college after high school. And of course, part of the intention of this program is that the cost and time to degree completion is significantly reduced for them. So designation in Massachusetts promotes a few things. This is the answer to the question, why designate? So designation does provide more equitable access to higher education for underserved students. Students who are historically underrepresented in at the college level, this program does increase that equity. There is alignment. Designation promotes alignment between the K-12 schools and the local public institutions of higher education, though in this case, this could also be a private institution of higher education. We do have private designated college partners. Designation also promotes enhanced career advising through MyCap, which is both a tool and a process for students to be able to, Kristen's smiling because I was listening earlier to a presentation. Designation and the use of MyCap helps students plan their trajectories and their interests in a structured and guided way, both through college coursework as well as exposure to career activities. Designation can also promote high school realignment and redesign. Immersive college exposure for the secondary of students, of course, can also help provide or expose, create opportunity for potential industry partnerships and supports for schools in the area, as well as adds to our state convened community of practice. And I'll speak a little bit more to that community of practice, of which you all are part of right now. So some of the benefits of applying for designation, we do know that there are, of course, early college programs that are operating in the state without designation, or that there are dual enrollment programs. So this is answering the question, why apply for our designation? So once programs have their applications have been reviewed, we have made the recommendations for designations to the Early College Joint Committee. And once those recommendations have been approved, the programs will be recognized, of course, by the DESI Commissioner and the DHE Commissioner for their commitment to increasing equity for their students through their early college programming. Designated programs will have access to technical assistance and the early college community practice. We host bi-weekly check-ins, statewide check-ins, opportunities for our programs to ask questions, receive answers, and also collaborate and work with their peers. We also host topically relevant seminar series, and I'll go into that a little bit more at the end of this session and share with you our upcoming series that we have. Designated programs will also have access to our data dashboards. For folks who were able to attend our data session early this morning, you were able to see a quick walkthrough from Pierre Lucien. Programs who are designated will have access to their own data as compiled and analyzed by us. And this will help illustrate your program's progress towards meeting your goals and outcomes as stated in your application. You also participate in a 5-year annual reporting cycle, which with at the end, there will be a cumulative program review. Additionally, we also, we'll go into more of this. This also entails site visits, reflections, etc., besides receiving your data. And then, of course, the benefits of being designated, funding. Designated programs will receive whatever annual funding has been approved, as well as be able to participate in relevant grant opportunities as they become available.
Becca, I love that being able to participate in the annual reporting cycle is one of the benefits of But in all seriousness, I think having that opportunity to regularly check in with external stakeholders, and in this case, the state, around progress in the programs, what supports you might need, and being able to reflect on that through the reporting cycle, hopefully is a benefit to programs.
Right, right. So we do expect from our designated programs, of course, that they are submitting their data accurately. So we use both SIMS and SES, as well as internal manual enrollment trackers, which include both actual numbers of your early college students and the college credits that they are attempting or taking, as well as your projections for upcoming terms. We also ask that programs, or not ask, but recommend that programs do participate in our community of practice, which includes opportunities such as this, the convening and our summit trainings. We have a resource site online as well, which we will walk through at the end of this session. And we do have professional development. We have a lot of opportunity for support as you both apply for designation, but also once you are designated, we're here to support you. And additionally, we do, of course, expect the reporting piece, as Kristen clarified, an annual report or review process is expected. But also we will be conducting site visits or virtual site visits, depending, of course, upon the future. And yes, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, folks. Perfect, we'll keep going on. All right, so the application overview for the designation consists of 2 parts, the Part A and Part B. Now, I'm going to walk through a little bit of our designation criteria documents and what those entail, but do note that each component of the application, Part A and Part B, are tied to specific language within that document. So for instance, the Part A application, which, as it sounds, of course, comes first, is tied to the preliminary designation criteria, which I'll show you examples of. But you can see here some of the examples of the language from that document. We would ask programs to describe the outreach and recruitment strategies you'll employ to proactively identify students who are traditionally underrepresented in higher education. And you can see here the ask on that aspect of the application is that you are showing planning and intention, and that you were describing your strategies. Whereas in Part B, the subsequent part of the application, we are instead asking programs to upload evidence of their materials to really demonstrate that your program is ready to begin enrolling students once designated. So for instance, asking programs, applicants to upload sample student schedules, recruitment materials, and an MOU. One thing to note is that the Part B application is made available to applicants once they have been approved under Part A. Part B is also tied to the final designation criteria, which I'll show you an example of some of that language. And then once the Part B application has been submitted, department staff will hold interviews with the applying partnership to be able to learn a little bit more about your program from you, ask any clarifying questions, etc. So the Part A and Part B applications are both submitted online through Alchemire. It's our online survey instrument. And then the questions themselves are organized by the 5 guiding principles, similarly to the designation criteria document, which I will walk through. We do make the Part A and Part B questions or applications as well available as a Word document. so that you can submit the questions online, but also have a printed copy with more thorough explanations, and be able to, of course, work within that document as you choose. So this is the timeline for the designation cycle for this coming year. You can see this bar in the middle. I've separated Part A from Part B. So on May 3rd, the early college application for SY 2022 will become available online on both the DESE and DHE websites. Additionally, on May 3rd, we will also be posting our designation criteria companion document, which I will explain a little bit more about. But do know that those two things are not available online right now, but they will be available May 3rd, as well as the Word document that I mentioned for Part A. Additionally, go ahead. Yep.
Oh, and the letter of intent. We'll also be asking for a letter of intent.
Thank you. Yes, in the letter of intent. This summer, we'll host office hours for applicants, as well as provide technical assistance. We'll be hosting our seminar series, which I'll explain a little bit more at the end of the summit. And then August 27th, the early college Part A applications are due. And then October 2021, we will announce which applicants are moving on to Part B after an internal review. And then the Part B applications are sent directly to the applicants. Within December, the applications for Part B are due, so it's a little bit of a tight timeline. We do want to highlight to only have about 2 or 3 months to be able to compile all of those materials. And then in winter, we will hold the interviews and then make our official recommendations for designation to the Early College Joint Committee in March. Perfect. So this is our brand new document that I'm pleased to introduce. So our designation companion document will serve as a guidance resource. It's meant to complement the founding Massachusetts Early College Designation Criteria document, which was passed in 2017. And I will show you some example language from that document. So this companion document doesn't replace the framework, scope, or sequence of that designation criteria document. The principles are the same, but it does reorder, clarify, and provide some specificity of the criteria to make a clearer link in between the original criteria document and the application process. And like we said, this will be posted on May 3rd, and we'll be sure to share information and notification when those things are live. So this is where it all connects. I mentioned that the designation criteria document has both preliminary designation criteria and final designation criteria. So I figured that it would be helpful to navigate how to maneuver between these 3 pieces: the criteria document, the new companion document, and the application questions. So we're going to look at enrollment here. So in the designation criteria document, under the preliminary designation, which is tied to Part A, we can see up here in the title, initial enrollment in early college should be made without regard to past academic performance. And we can see that this is related, of course, to our guiding principle 1 of equity. But this is one sentence. We might need a little bit more information. And then in Part B, so we can see up here at the top of this box, the final designation criteria. For enrollment, we will ask applicants to submit a written admission policy. I've got a little arrow down here at the bottom, including a potential lottery process and any program enrollment requirements. Now here is where the clarified reference to enrollment exists within the designation criteria companion document. We can see here that the language is expanded upon and clarified of what this means. For instance, program, I'm looking here at 3B, program enrollment policies should be as broad as possible. Students should not be excluded from participation based on prior or current GPA, test scores, or placement scores. So here this language is really expanding upon what we mean in the preliminary criteria of what this open enrollment means. So I highly encourage you, when you access these documents, to look at them in tandem. So here, Part A, this is a sample Part A question. We can see that there are 4 questions all tied to enrollment. Describe your process for identifying students. Describe the outreach and recruitment strategies. How will your plan ensure that those targeted populations enroll, and then provide any additional information? So we can see that These three documents all support each other, and asking applicants to share your intentions for enrolling historically underserved student populations in your early college program. And then in part B, this is a sample question, we will ask applicants to then upload the evidence of your plan. So for instance, uploading the written admission policy to your early college program, explaining any minimum program enrollment requirements, which are again explained in detail in the companion document, and then providing a plan for program selection if student interest should outstrip enrollment capacity. And I'm going to pause. If folks have questions, just pop them in the chat right now. Kristen, you were muted.
Sorry, there have been a couple of questions. I don't know if they're specifically on the application. So do you want them now or would you like them in a little bit?
Whatever you think.
So there's a question that Marcia posted earlier around, I think she's asking, do schools have to partner with a public college or university in order to be eligible for early designation, for early college designation?
The answer to that is no. We have designated private colleges and universities, but we can explain a little bit more about that component. The answer is yes, they are eligible for designation.
I'm sorry, this is Marcia. The question was actually about the accelerated designation.
Yeah, the accelerated designation. Thank you. That's what I was going to jump in and clear out.
No, I wrote early. So it's a accelerated designation. Yep. And if they're eligible, if they're partnered with a private college or university. Private
colleges and universities partnerships right now are not eligible for the accelerated designation. The state at the time was, as we transitioned out of the COVID and the halt that we had on our designation process, the state wanted to make sure to look at funding opportunities and also how to capture data from private institutions. So we will be reopening that opportunity back up with the regular designation cycle, but for the accelerated designation, private colleges and universities were not included this time.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Why don't we keep going then? Yes, and just note that what I'm sharing, we do recognize that there might be folks in the room who are applying for accelerated designation, but this timeline, of course, an overview is in regards to the SY22 designation cycle. I see that the chat is going. I'm going to let my colleagues take care of it.
I think they're good. I think we're good. Joseph answered a couple questions that were more technical in nature. But I think we're
perfect. Thank you for your support, team. All right, so here are 5 guiding principles, which I've mentioned: equitable access, guided academic pathways, enhanced student support, connections to career, and a high quality partnership between the K-12 and higher ed institutions. These 5 guiding principles are by which we structure our designation criteria language as well as our application. And of course, the priority being for our program and our mission as a program is equitable access. And under equitable access, some of the components of your applying early college program are that your recruitment plan must target underrepresented students, that your program is completely free. I mentioned that before. Students are not excluded due to GPA or scores. And I'll explain a little bit more about that enrollment and onboarding process in my next slide. There must be multiple entry and exit points, so students can enter into the college program, the early college program, at different points in their high school career. And of course, there must be support for entry into the early college program, especially before taking college level courses. We do require that students graduate with at least 12 college credits. That being said, that is only a minimum. We have many students who are even graduating this coming term with associate's degrees. That 12 college credits is simply a minimum. We do require that students or encourage programs to structure their program in a way that students can self-identify as an early college student. Early college is a holistic program. It's more than college course taking as an individual. And we want all of the opportunities provided to early college students to help them see themselves as college going. So that identity piece is huge. And of course, we would want the coursework to be aligned with the higher ed credit transfer and admission criteria, for instance, mass transfer and mass core as well is encouraged. In terms of student support, we do, of course, require comprehensive support for all students, which includes both academic and non-academic supports, advising, mentoring, peer tutoring, structured academic time, even co-teaching, a separate space for early college students on the higher education campus. There's a range of supports, but we do require both the academic and non-academic pieces. Like I said, to build that college-going identity and support and prepare students for college beyond just the academic piece. And of course, we do ask that the student schedule is built in that advisory and college access and support time, requiring that during the school day, students are taking their early college program, which is of course related to equity, so that all students can access the program and the supports within the school day. We do ask, of course, for career activities to be provided to students by grade level in the MyCap tool to be used. The higher education program, the higher education partner should also commit to providing support and resources around these connections to career and other opportunities for the early college student beyond the college course taking. And we can speak to the range of those activities that we've seen in our designated programs. And lastly, we will ask for partners to submit a signed MOU that includes a budget, staffing and performance criteria, how they will evaluate themselves. There's that we do ask for that document. And we ask that programs have regularly scheduled meetings with each other, that they communicate, and that they are coordinating their planning together. An example of this, of course, would be curriculum alignment is a great way to demonstrate this strong partnership between the K-12 partner and the institution of higher education. So this is a visual of a sample of what the early college student journey might look like. And this is, I'm highlighting it, it's a sample. It is a sample, but we see here, for instance, the student in the 9th grade, they're exposed to the early college pathway option. They might participate in college and career exploratory course, a first-year experience course. Very much this is an exposure year, an opportunity to learn about the early college program. In 9th grade spring, the early college student could apply and commit to the early college program. The student could apply and commit to the early college program in the 10th grade. But either way, we do look for programs that are providing these on-ramping activities, preparation for college coursework in the 9th and 10th grade year, so that by the time students are really digging deep into their college level courses in their 11th and 12th grade years, they are prepared. We've seen programs offer a variety of preliminary college courses, such as social justice, or maybe a English 101, etc. So we do see those preliminary college courses at the beginning, and then students really diving deep into more specific courses related to their guided academic pathway in 11th and 12th grade. And then, of course, in the 11th and 12th grade years, students are continuing to take college level courses. They're also participating in career awareness and immersion activities and or wraparound supports. I want to highlight here, this is something that we do prefer, that students are taking their college courses on the college campus. In this age of COVID, we have recognized programs who are doing hybrid college coursework with their students. However, we do prefer that at least some college courses are taken on the college campus, at the very least in the 12th grade year. But I did want to say that as a preference. 3:30. That is a preference that programs provide that. But of course, with the goal being that your early college students are comfortable on a college campus, they know how to access resources on the college campus and navigate the campus, etc. So having them take their college courses on the campus definitely adds to that.
I think transportation also, we recognize that some schools, particularly to integrate into the school day. So again, I think the strong preference is that students would be able to experience as much as possible, and hopefully tiered experience where it's getting more and more immersive as they get closer to leaving high school, that they have those college experiences. But as Becca mentioned, COVID certainly has allowed us to rethink possibilities and reconsider ways in which students access college credits. So regardless of whatever model is decided upon, I really urge you to think about equity and how that impacts use your application to explain why that model, how it was intentionally selected, and the benefits that you see in that model, as well as the challenges that you'll face with that model and the ways in which you're going to build in intentional supports. We have yet to have a fully online model outside of COVID, because we really do value that college experience. But I think as things are shifting and certainly programs should design what's best for them, and not design it necessarily to our designation criteria. Although ultimately, at the end of the day, to receive designation, they would need to be aligned, and the Early College Joint Committee would need to approve that model.
Thank you. All right, so with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, or actually, Joseph, I think you can share your screen over my screen. But I would like to take this time to introduce NS4Ed. They are a technical assistance provider. They are also the lovely hosts and supports in this early college summit that we've hosted today. And they're, you know what, I'll allow them to take the floor. Go ahead, Joseph.
Is that showing up on the screen, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, we're excited to be here as always, and to provide technical support and assistance. And I've just pulled up, I posted a link. Several people, I can recognize the faces, have been to the website and know it very well, but we do have it posted. I posted the password for those that are not familiar with it. And one of the things we do try to do is, obviously, we try to keep things current with research, topical information, professional development. One of the things we started doing this year during COVID was to do virtual spotlights of programs so that we can share those best cases and those scenarios. And so feel free to check out the ones we've done, but we also would love to do your school or other programs that are on here that have been approved. But one of the things I will show too is Rebecca was talking about the toolkit. So we have lots of information and resources on each one of those 5 design principles. And you can go here, I can click on equitable access. It will take you to the criteria, resources, the companion document that'll be coming soon, any webinars we have done specifically on that topic. So feel free to browse that. If you see something we're missing or we're not having, or we don't have posted, feel free to let us know. As an example, as we've been going throughout today, Kelly, who is my technical wizard in the back, making everything work. You'll notice that we've been recording the sessions. We've been posting information on each of the sessions, even throughout today. So as we get more of this information posted, we'll definitely share it. So for the same page you came to register, we will turn around and put the information sessions that we can share. And the other thing is we will be doing hopefully a deep dive on each one of these guiding principles. One of the things we want to do is really go back and look at each one of these principles in detail and look at the elements that are demonstrative, but also best practices and community sharing, as well as artifacts from each of these. And so we'll have this up very soon that talks about the series. So for those that are going through the regular designation after the acceleration period, obviously you'll see the dates there, and we'll be diving into each one of these over the next 8 weeks. And so that'll be our next series that we'll be doing. But all of that is on the Early College resource site. Any questions about it? All the check-ins we do a bi-weekly check-in. If you haven't registered, you can register. As soon as you register, it should automatically put you in all the bi-weekly check-ins. And so, but excited, and we'll be continuing to provide this. And if you think of any resources we're missing, we have a news section. This is where we post a lot of information from Kristen and the team, as well as Desi and DHE. The newsletter gets posted here. And so we do a lot of references to all the resources that you need. We even have a reading room to where we post research. So if we see current research on any of these topics, we try to keep that current as well. But any questions about any of that, please let us know, and we'll continue to provide the support.
Thank you, Joseph. And just to note that we do still post official announcements on the DESI and DHE websites. This is meant more as an internal resource site, which hence the password, although you're welcome to share it out. It's really just meant to give our community a practice, in addition to all the resources, an opportunity to have kind of facilitated peer-to-peer conversations in an environment where they can ask questions or present challenges, and not always, particularly in our PLC work with department staff present. Sometimes those conversations are facilitated among Joseph and his staff so that people can really present challenges and that light.
Oops. Rebecca.
There we go.
There
I was waiting for the little black bar to come down. It's just, all right. Okay, so upcoming webinars. For programs that are considering applying to the early college designation, we will have a webinar on May 11th. So this is after the Part A application. The letter of intent and the companion document are posted online. It is from 3 to 4 p.m. We will post the link to register in the chat. This webinar will be more of the nuts and bolts of applying for designation. I only briefly just walked through the application process and the criteria and the preliminary designation criteria language. So this session will walk through that much more closely, but we'll focus on the Part A so that folks can also review the Part A application since it will be available online before that, and bring questions to that session. Additionally, we'll be hosting a professional development series on the 5 guiding principles from May till the end of June. Each of these sessions is going to be focused on the guiding principle, and my colleagues will post as well another link in the chat that will better describe what these professional learning community sessions will provide. But essentially, it is an opportunity to be able to learn more about what equity means for the early college program, what we are looking for under the guiding criteria, the designation criteria for equity within your applications. As well, it's an opportunity as well to just answer technical questions that you have about each topic. So it's a space to definitely receive that support to learn, but also to be able to ask questions, collaborate, troubleshoot, etc., as you begin to develop your proposals and applications. And this is also, it's not just for applying programs, though it will definitely be helpful for applying programs. I know there are folks in the room today who just want to stay on top of things and keep updated. You're always more than welcome to attend as well. And the links to register for this will be made available on the resource site as well. So you'll be able to sign up for those. And as well, I know that, of course, if scheduling is a challenge, our resources are made available as well afterwards if you are unable to attend. Mouse click. There we go. All right, the early college team. We probably should have started with this one. But of course, Dr. Hunt introduced herself at the beginning. I'm Rebecca, my colleague. Yao Aslantivio is also on the call. And Pierre Lucien, who is our SDP fellow, who works with our data, makes up our small but mighty early college team. And now it's time for Q&A. I did see a couple questions in the chat, but feel free as well to unmute yourself and either restate your question that you popped into the chat or ask new questions. We're more than happy to answer. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so I can see your faces, but that is the end of our session. So happy to answer questions.
Becca, while people are formulating their thoughts, I can throw out a couple that were in the chat around. So one of the questions that comes up often, and in this case as well, is whether or not if you already have a designation, so whether that's on the high school side or the college side, because we have high schools with 2 partners and then we have colleges with several partners, whether or not you need to do a new application. The answer is yes as of now. We firmly support collaborative groups. But in terms of the designation process, we really want to see that the infrastructure is in place for the individual institutions involved, and also that in some ways protects collaboratives, because if a high school pulls out of a collaborative, that part of the designation is between those institutions. And so we've had, in one case, we had a school, the distance was very far for the college courses, and they decided to pull out of the designation and offer an after-school program. But their collaborative efforts and the individual relationships within schools and the college partners were still intact. So the answer is yes. If you need to cut and paste, or it makes sense to cut and paste in terms of, parts of particularly from the college administration side, is very similar to past applications, then by all means. But again, we want to see that specific infrastructure and the commitment from the school personnel, and even if it is really a district-wide initiative. And I also will say, just with high school partners that are, will have two designations within their high school, we also want to see that there's some cohesiveness and holisticness to that experience for students. So what, in terms of the choices that they're going to make when that information is presented to them, a lot of our partnerships and districts meet regularly with both partners, and they have some meetings with both partners present at a time. I highly recommend that, particularly if you're working with a 2-year and a 4-year college. Do the courses transfer between each other? How is it structured? Why do you need the additional partner? What is it adding? In some cases, it's adding different meta major based pathways. In other cases, it's just offering multiple opportunities for students to see 2 and 4-year, or for them to partner together and support it. Sometimes it's about capacity. So I just recommend that, again, that's another reason why we ask for that individual application, even if you've already done one, so that you can demonstrate to us how they're coordinated for students and their families, and also make sure that there's not necessarily informal tracking going on in terms of, some students are going specifically to this institution, other students are going to that institution. That equitable access has really been thoughtfully laid out, so that students are really choosing it on the best pathway option for them, and not necessarily by the school offering the program, particularly as those courses are expected to be transferable to other institutions. So I hope that answered that question. See Fagan's hand.
I see one that says, is there any disadvantage to partnering with a private college, possibly in terms of receiving public funding?
So in the past, CDEP has not been able to cover the tuition credits of private institutions. This year, we were able to do the tuition credits with private institutions. So that has been helpful. We're hoping that continues to be the case, but we do not have a guarantee of that, as the sustainable funding is still really being worked out. We have some great private partners that we are really excited are part of this teamwork, and particularly when they, as they've been put through a very rigorous designation process that I'm sure they will share with you, but particularly when they've been able to really articulate well the articulation agreements between the community colleges and other partners, so that they're offering transferable credits that will transfer throughout our system, and at least have identified some public colleges where those credits will transfer as well. We've also had, one of the things that our partnership in Lawrence has done is Merrimack College has offered scholarships to our students, so early college students, some graduates. That is a phenomenal aspect of and actually NECC returned in kind, and also offers scholarships to early college graduates. So I think that we embrace private colleges, but in terms of how the funding works out, I think some of that is still being established. This year we were able to support the tuition credits, and then the K-12 partner also received district support grants. So there is some funding associated that would impact private institutions' involvements as well. But again, I think I mentioned the state has been looking at how to continue to support that going forward. Megan has a question, I think. Go ahead.
Thanks. I don't have the raise hand option for some reason. So building on the last question that you were answering, did I understand you correctly that I get we need to have one high school partnership, but can we have 2 higher ed institutions, i.e. the 2-year institution and the 4-year institution together? Because as we heard this morning, there's tremendous benefits to that.
Yes, so the high school typically, so if they already have the partnership with the 2-year partner, for example, they may put in another designation application for the four-year partner. We don't have any high schools with more than 2 right now. And then it would also address the 2-year partnership. So it would say, we have I'm just going to use Mount Wachusett. I have Mount Wachusett, so this is what we do. And I know you already have a 4-year partner for some of your programs as well. But the high school would then talk about, and then we're bringing in this 4-year college partner to offer 2 additional pathways or to coordinate with, whatever framework and design that that would be used. But yeah, so there will be, and again, there's oftentimes we've had programs that have cut and pasted pieces of their. Another example is when 2 schools from a similar district are applying for designation. We put them through the rigor twice, and they were welcome to cut and paste the pieces of the K-12 side that made sense to replicate. But then when it comes to, again, interviews and understanding how that plays out in each individual school, that's where that really became helpful. So a lot of our programs kind of have a regional collaborative or a higher ed collaborative on that end, and however that, and or even other programs that are outside of the designation that are kind of umbrellaed at the program level one way, but at the state level in terms of designation, this is how we organize it, if that makes sense.
So for a new designation too, we would still need to do 2 separate applications with each high school, one for the 2-year, one for the 4-year.
Unless, I think if you were at a model where it was truly integrated, like one program, like one student taking courses with both institutions. I think we've had a couple of that recently where the community college is offering some of the more liberal arts courses and another institution's offering some of the more business type courses. So that in that case, that could possibly be a one application because it's one group of students, if that makes sense. When you're offering additional pathways or expanding opportunities for more students, and if I'm being clear, then that would require a second designation.
Can I clarify too, in terms of data, if it is an integrated program like that, we would need to be able to keep track as well of how many college credits a student is taking at that institution at that time to be able to separate it out for instance, our funding.
Thank you.
There were other questions in the chat. I gotta scroll back. Oh, I left the room. I got kicked out, so I can't see.
There was one about GPAs and just kind of, we talked about kind of this idea of not using GPAs and other measures to enroll students in early college programming. Again, and I mentioned this in my last session, we hold very true to that and very much want programs to expand and broaden access as much as possible to their students. That is different than demonstrating college readiness. And hopefully what we're really pushing for is multiple measures of college readiness. So we understand that, at some point students some diagnostics will need to take place. So kind of recognize where students are in terms of preparation, particularly for a course with prerequisites. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it is up to the college to uphold their prerequisites and their academic rigor that they do for other courses. However, we really encourage, and we've seen our colleges take this and run with it, multiple measures of college readiness and move away from strictly using AccuPlacer. And this is at the recommendation of DHEs as well as institutions themselves have often have also come up with their own multiple measures of readiness much before early college, but start thinking about different ways in which students, and particularly in the early college model, different ways in which students can meet requirements and demonstrate readiness. So some of the programs are doing that through curriculum alignment. So if you're high school alignment, I use this example all the time, English 10 kind of has incorporated with the English faculty from both institutions meeting together, has been able to incorporate what traditionally would be in developmental English coursework into English 10. And the student passes that course with a C- or higher. The college may be in a position, again, this often goes by department, not even just by college, but individual departments and deans, has been, yep, our faculty, that makes sense to us. We know that all the components that we would see in this course are in there. So if these students have passed with a particular grade, then we feel confident that they are ready to enter that class. So that may be one way in which that's opened up, or they may be doing another placement exam in addition. So I would just kind of keep honing in on the fact that we don't expect early college students to all be college ready. That is the point of early college. If they were, then they would pursue dual enrollment. So this is really meant to think about how to introduce students to of all kind of academic, across academic spectrum, and particularly those that may have not felt themselves on a college academic pathway, to have those experiences and to gain that academic experience and knowledge so that they can continue to be successful in that pathway. If anyone feels like I'm not answering the questions I see in the chat, or missing a point, please feel free to ask follow-up questions. And there was a question around how long is designation. So designation is meant to be for 5 years. At this point, it's not so much about being de-designated year to year. It's really about a 5-year designation, unless there's something egregious going on, or students being charged thousands of dollars to attend. Then de-designation is not necessarily what we're looking at year to year. We're really looking to help to have a timeline in which student or programs, can come to scale, and to be able to see how their student outcomes go. So obviously 5 years is just when your students are entering in their first year into their first year of college. So at this point too, and I should mention that we are also, with our first few programs, kind of have been delaying that kind of finality of the 5-year designation. So those programs we're counting will probably be 6 or 7 years in for our first programs that were designated. And then COVID hit, so our annual reporting that we had expected to start this year is also delayed. So right now we're really, and that's also one of the reasons why we're being so particular, I guess, about the data collecting and kind of creating the statewide data system, and seeing where the gaps are and what other data we need to be able to collect, and whatever data we need to be able to provide you for support for your programs, and making sure we're balancing equitable access with outcomes. And so we have, like, just as an example, we have some programs where they're really targeting, really prioritizing L students, and building pathways and on-ramps for L students to take college courses. Their total credit accumulation at the end, as long as they meet the minimum of 12 credits, may look very different than some of our other programs. May not, but it may look very different than some of our other programs, where students are coming in at a later date, or you have more of a spectrum of students who are academically prepared to go on, who may not require all of them the same amounts of supports, although we really do expect supports to be intentional. So kind of looking at the whole picture of our programs. We also have a wall-to-wall charter school, so their experience and the numbers, so they're graduating their first class this year and expecting 51% of their students to receive an associate's degree. So it's very exciting, but also very different in some ways than what our other programs are doing. We also have our programs that aren't wall-to-wall that have students graduating with an associate's degree, but they may have a much wider spectrum of students. So some students are getting the 12 credits, and some students are able to take advantage of different opportunities, and early colleges open doors for them to continue their coursework and accumulate credits.
Perfect. We do know it's after time, so if you all do need to head out, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll remain here to answer more questions and provide other resources if you need. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for attending. We hope to keep connecting with you all. And thank you for your interest in the early college designation process.
Thank you.